Hello, everyone. This is Kerwin, and welcome to another episode of Travel Talk. And today we're going to talk about what do you expect from an airline? Let's go. So, back when I worked for Continental, way back when, the CEO we had was Gordon Mithien. And he had a thing that says the airline needed to be clean, safe, and reliable. And if those three things are attained, then the customers are happy. I'm going to add some more to that. But let's talk about cleanliness as the first one. The airplanes need to be clean. I've been flying around for the last, 2 years or 3 years. And, the airplanes have been dirty. I've been on airplanes where they had to stop the boarding process because the flight attendant realized that the airplane was so dirty that she couldn't let her customers get on the plane. And they had to call back the cleaners, and the cleaners had to come and clean the airplane. Now, that's a really good flight attendant. But I've also gotten on flights where, as I spoke about in a previous video, I had a glass from the previous customer. I had a spoon from the previous customer. I had Fruit Loops from the previous customer. So, and I've seen my friend shows pictures online where the airplane is not clean. So the tray table is not clean. So cleanliness is the first thing that customers really expect from you. The other thing Mr. Between talked about was safety. Now, safety is something that the airlines actually do care about, and you can see that in the performance. The number of crashes that have occurred grossly, drastically decreased over time. And it's a testament to the technology that's been used to build these airplanes, because a few years ago, a 737 crashed in Amsterdam, and one also crashed in Jamaica, Kingston, Jamaica, ran off the runway at the end. And when it crashed, the airplane broke in two places, behind the wing and in front of the wing. It's designed, that was a 737. They were designed that way. And what that does, it decreases the number of fatalities. And so people are able to get out of those airplanes safely. I think actually both airplanes, everyone might have survived, I think. There's also another airplane that crashed in San Francisco, 777, and people were able to get out. Unfortunately, somebody died because they were using the foam to put the fire out, and I think the foam covered someone, and they something ran over them and they died. But the airplanes are much safer than they used to be, and they're being made with materials that can withstand crashes or break apart in specific places. So the safety part is really good. Reliability, this has been an issue quite a bit lately, because you've had, no, let me back up a sec. Airplanes are actually extremely well maintained for the most part. If they weren't, you would have a lot more issues. If you think about what an airplane does, two engines, flew 8 hours and 40 minutes. It lands, they refuel it, they put more oil in it. The pilot does his walk around, make sure that nothing broke on the way over. And then they cater it, clean it, put more passengers on, put more passengers' bags on, and they take off again in about 2 hours, 3 hours or so. And they head across the Atlantic or the Pacific again for another 8 hours. Sometimes the flight are 14 hours, sometimes the flight are 18 hours, depending on how long they, where they're going. So the reliability is pretty amazing. I mean, those engines are going all the time. In industry, they say that the airplanes don't make money when they're sitting down, which is true. So the clean, safe, and reliable is the reliability part is actually there. But sometimes you have like a problem. Like recently, there was an airplane had some kind of failure and they had to land in one of the islands, Terceira in the Azores, and it was coming from Ghana to JFK. And so passengers were stranded for a little bit until another airplane came to get them. Now, that is a good thing that they were able to land, and then another airplane came and picked them up. And it wasn't that, you had to go search the ocean to find these people, which has happened a few times. So the reliability part is definitely there. One of the other things that really annoy people is on time. The airlines, their schedule is so tight. And I'm still amazed that they will say we're leaving at 3:05 and we're going to arrive at 6:30 somewhere else. And we left at 3:05 and we arrived at 6:30, right on time. But sometimes it doesn't work that way. And when it doesn't work that way, people get really annoyed because everybody has a plan to go somewhere and do something. And so whenever the airline messes up those plans, there is people are not happy. And, they unfortunately, the gate agents who are the front line are the ones that take the brunt of the yelling, and it's not their fault, right? Just a tip, do not yell at the gate agents because they're the ones that are going to get you out of there. So please do not yell at the gate agents, although a lot of people do. And I'm like, seriously, this could be your mom, your dad, your son, your daughter, so I mean, why are you yelling at these people? But these are the people, because they're front facing, they're the ones that take the brunt of the airlines, do what they call them irregular operations. And it's like the airlines, one of the issues that people get a lot, and I've been on planes where this happens, when you have a rolling delay. So a rolling delay is where the airline comes on and say, hey, the airplane's going to be 5 minutes late. Everyone's like, hey, 5 minutes is not too bad. Then they go, oh, it's going to be another 20 minutes. Oh, it's going to be another 40 minutes. Oh, it's going to be another 2 hours. And so now people are really upset because how could you not know how long it's going to take to fix something, is what the normal customer is going to say. Because you're the expert. You're supposed to know this. And so whenever I'm sitting on a flight and the pilot goes, we have a light on in the cockpit, I'm like, that's not good. Because 9 times out of 10, it doesn't take 5 minutes. Then because the pilot will, his or her job will be to troubleshoot. And they will troubleshoot and they will figure it out. And then if they can't fix it, then they have to call the mechanic. Once you call the mechanic, it's going to be an hour. Because you have to find the mechanic has to come, the mechanic has to diagnose. Then once the mechanic figures out, okay, it's going to be this, then they have to get the part. If they need a part. If they need a part, you're in trouble, because normally if you're not like in your own station, so like let's say you're flying from San Francisco to London. Yeah, let's say London. And if the airplane breaks down in San Francisco, it's easy. It's a hub for that airline, And so, but if the airplane breaks down in London, it's not a hub for that airline, although it's a big enough operations. So not so much. Similar, like if you go to the Caribbean, the airplane breaks down in Jamaica. Like I went to Jamaica and I saw there was a JetBlue airplane sitting there. And I know it broke down. They don't have the part. They're waiting for the part. And so the airplane is sitting there. More than likely, the mechanics are going to be flown in with the part and the pilots. They're going to fix it, and they're going to do what they call ferry it back, which means it's going to go back to New York or Florida, and it won't have any passengers on it because there's a special authorization. So that goes into a whole bunch of things that you don't even need to know about. But anyway, that's just how they take airplanes back. They just call it ferrying because it doesn't have any passengers on it. Typically, no flight attendant, is just the pilots that are flying the airplane back. And so I saw that airplane there and I go, okay, great. That's so a lot of customers were inconvenienced because that airplane was put out of the system, which means that it's a knock-on effect. When that airplane goes out of service, they have to find another airplane to come pick up the passengers, or they have to put all the passengers on another flight, and all the flights are full, and so it gets ugly, very ugly, very quickly, which leads to the other point, communication. The airlines don't always communicate the situation. So you have a delay, and again, you have a rolling delay, and you're not communicating to the customer. In some situations, my friends have been on flights where they said the gate agents were hiding because they didn't want to speak to the customers because the customers were really angry and they didn't want to go talk to them. And I understand, I totally understand, but someone needs to communicate with these customers. And so customers can be sometimes annoying. I've worked at the airport. So I got yelled at one morning. Matter of fact, I always get yelled at in the morning because people are annoyed. The traffic was bad. The kids won't get up. They're running late. And so I'm the first person they see that's not in their family, and they're mad as heck. And so I get all the annoying stuff because they're mad. And it's not my fault. I had nothing to do with it. I'm just checking them in, but they're in a hurry. They can't wait. They're overweight. And I go, well, you have to pay. Oh, how come you're charging me more for bags and all that kind of stuff? All of a sudden, they're mad at me and it's my fault, but I had nothing to do with it. So it happens, right? People like to yell at people because something is happening to them. So it's communication. Communication, communication, communication. Now, one of the ways you as a customer can help is if you use the flight status systems or whatever system the airline has to communicate. Make sure that your email address is in your reservation or a phone number is in your reservation. So if something goes wrong, the airlines can call you and tell you, well, we've canceled your flight. Let's see your flight leaving in a month. And for whatever reason, the airline has to reschedule, i.e. they have to change the departure time. Let's say you were leaving at 2:30 and leave at 3:30 instead. They will notify you that this time has changed. And for some reason, Siri is being stupid. So I'm trying, let me just stop it from, I don't know, how do you tell Siri to stop, stop listening? But anyway, so I lost my train of thought now, but so you just have to make sure people communicate. You can use a flight status system. Make sure I was saying, make sure your phone number and your email address is in the record, and the record, which means your reservations, so that if there's a problem, the airline can contact you and say, hey, your flight is leaving at 2:30 instead of 3:30, or 3:30 instead of 2:30. We booked you in another flight. Would you like that flight? And then maybe you can change or whatever needs to go on. But that's how you make sure that they have a method of communicating with you, and they need to make sure that they communicate with you. Oftentimes this does not happen, and people get super mad when that happens. One of the other things is when we have delays, they will post that the airplane is coming in. So let's say it's supposed to leave at 3:00. The airline shows that the flight that's going to make up your flight, which means the flight that's coming in from somewhere else so that you can get on and go where you need to go, is going to arrive at, I said 3:00, right? It's going to arrive at 2:30. But your original scheduled departure time was 3:00. There is no way if the flight arrives at 2:30, you're going to leave at 3:00. So why won't they update it? One of the reasons is because they want to stay on time, or they think they can make up. Remember I did a video about on time, and on time in airline speak is if they leave within 15 minutes of their scheduled departure time. So if that flight leaves at 3:15, they're still on time. But you're a customer and you're sitting there and the plane isn't there yet and it arrived at 2:30. There's no way they can clean it. They can get everybody off, clean it, cater it, and catering means take off all the food from the previous flight and put new food on. Then they have to clean the plane, right? And they got to get everybody off, get all their bags off, get everybody on. We'll clean the plane, get everybody back on, get the food on, get the fuel on. And then, because sometimes the fuel takes a while, especially if it's going to be a long flight. Then you have to get the fuel on, you have to get the bags on, and then you leave. It doesn't happen in half an hour. And so these are airline professionals. They know it's not going to happen in half an hour. So what do? They still tell you 3 o'clock. You know at 2:30 that flight is coming in. It's 3 o'clock. And they're still telling you it's going to depart at 3. So then at 5 minutes to 3, they go, oh, we have a delay. Seriously, you knew you were going to have a delay at 2:30 because that flight was not going to arrive. Now, sometimes what they do is they tend to keep their time because they don't want people wandering off. Yes, people do wander off. Yes, people go to the bar and drink. Yes, people get left. I was in, I think I forgot where it was. And this lady, she wandered up to the gate and she is drunk. She goes, oh, I've only had a few. And the guy's like, you're not getting on this flight. And she's mad. And the flight was delayed and she went to the bar and she drank. And she goes, I only had a few. And the guy's like, mm-mm. So if your flight, I tip, if your flight is delayed, don't go to the bar and drink. Because if you get drunk and they notice, you will not get on that flight, just so you know. So anyway, so that's one of the reasons why they don't really tell you that the flight's going to be so delayed, because people do wander off. They normally say, hey, the flight's going to be delayed, but then don't wander off. And they're not kidding, do not wander off. Now, what happens is that the flight status comes in, and the flight status says, hey, your new departure time is 3:30. And they tell you this at 5 minutes to 3 when your origin departure is 3 o'clock. So they knew your flight was going to be delayed. Now, sometimes even when they do that, when they tell you at 5 minutes to 3 that the flight's going to depart at 3:30, and people are still walking off the plane, especially if it's a big plane, not going to happen, right? Because you're still going to have to get all these people, especially if the flight's full coming in, flight's full going out, it's not going to happen. So airlines, communicate, figure out a way to effectively communicate to the customers, right? The other thing is that airlines, the average customer doesn't care how big your airline are. They do not care that you have a gabillion planes, you fly to a gabillion places. They don't care. What they care about is that their flight is clean, it's safe, it's reliable, it leaves on time. I get my bags, because that's the other thing. I get my bags when I arrive, all my bags, and you communicate. So just do those things. If you do those things well, you won't have any issues. Now, of course, this is not a utopian society, right? So whenever you have issues, communicate. If you've left my bag, tell me you've left my bag. And when I call up your agents and I'm asking you about my bag, if I'm supposed to get compensation, give me my compensation. Don't go, oh, I don't know what you're supposed to get. Don't tell me to call another airline when you are the airline I'm supposed to call. There was someone who was reporting that they flew one airline, they bought a ticket from one airline and there's a coach in another one. And then when they contacted the airline that they bought the ticket from, they were like, oh, you didn't buy the ticket from us, you need to call the other airline. So they called the other airline, and said, no, you need to call the other airline. No, don't do that. This is what makes customers upset. You are going to have a problem. And when you do have the problem, what you need to do is to communicate with the customers. Tell them what the problem is and fix it. You have to fix it. It is not the fault. Even if it's not your fault, they bought the ticket from you. So you need to fix it. That is the issue. Don't let them be calling all over the place and putting stuff online and all that. One of the issues we have currently is that Delta has an issue with their frequent flyer program. They're changing the rules. And everybody's upset because now you have to spend more money, and people are like, well, that's not fair. And what they're doing is they're just posting on social media like there's no problem. It's like, and every time they post something, all the comments are negative. Every single comment is like, well, really? You're not talking about the fact that you're changing the program? And it's so sad because just communicate. if you've said something bad and customers don't like it, don't act like you didn't say anything. Treat the customers properly. Make sure that you're communicating with them. Geez, I can't say communicate enough in this video. So I think that's the number one thing that's wrong. So anyway, clean, safe, reliable, communicate. I want my bags. Make sure my bags are with me when I arrive. And if they are not there, make sure that there's a procedure and there is a process that I can get it. Sometimes the problem is that you have other agents. I've been in Amsterdam before. I missed my flight, and then another agent was handling it. And all they needed to do was to get me a hotel. They didn't have to rebook because I took care of that myself, although they were supposed to. But they're supposed to get me a hotel for the night because they delayed the flight. Now I have to wait. Oh, let me call up and make sure it's okay. What do you mean it's make sure it's okay? You delayed me. My flight is gone. There's no more flight until tomorrow. Obviously, you have to put me up. So just do it. So that's the problem that we have with that. And I don't care how many flights you operate. I don't care if you're the biggest airline in the world. I don't care. All I want you to do is to get me to my destination, clean, safe, reliable, with my bag and on time. And if you can't do that, communicate with me why you can't do that and compensate me in some fashion. And if I find a dirty airplane and I tell you it's dirty, please don't tell me you're sorry. Give me some compensation. What are your thoughts? This is Kerwin with Travel Talk. Have a great trip. Talk to you soon. Oh, subscribe, leave a note below. Let me know what you think. Send me an email, all that kind of good stuff. All right. Talk to you soon.